Hello, General Biology. This is our video on trophic levels and energy transfer. And we went over our trophic levels on our last video, and we went over a food web, which kind of represented an ecosystem. And now we're going to go back and we're going to look at that again, and we're going to talk about how energy moves through an ecosystem and why there are fewer organisms at the top of a food web than there are at the bottom of a food web. So let's take a look. First of all, we have our ecosystem over here. We've got our food web, and we started last time by saying that the sun provides light energy to our producers. Now, in an ecosystem, there are four primary ways that energy travels through the ecosystem, into organisms, out of organisms, through the environment. The first one we're going to discuss is radiant energy. This is a fancy word that describes energy that goes in waves, and light is a form of radiant energy. So the sun is actually transferring radiant energy to our algae, seaweed, and plankton. And we can label that right here, that this is radiant energy. And so the sun is providing radiant energy for algae, seaweed, and phytoplankton. They're getting light. And because they're producers, they can conduct photosynthesis. And what photosynthesis does is it allows producers to make the sugar glucose. Glucose is a specific sugar with the energy from light. So now they have glucose, and that means the energy has become stored chemically. We now have chemical energy, and that's really important. Thank you, producers, for being able to do photosynthesis and make chemical energy, because all the other organisms on Earth, they can't get radiant energy to run their cells. They have to use chemical energy to run their cells. So that's actually what the plants are doing. They take the radiant energy from the sun, they make glucose out of it during photosynthesis, and have chemical energy. And they use that chemical energy to run their body. All of those cells that they have need that chemical energy that they're making from the sun. So what happens when the cell has that chemical energy? Well, those plant cells are using the chemical energy. They're moving cells around. They're using their cells to move nutrients in and out of their bodies. They're making new body parts. All of this requires energy. So what happens to that energy that they have? It actually leaves their body. And when energy leaves the body, it goes into the environment. And it can go into the environment a couple different ways. And the ways we are going to care about is that it's going to leave their body as heat, and it's going to leave their body as motion. So when the cells move, they're bumping into things like little molecules and air molecules in the environment. And so the motion goes from them to the air molecules. And as you know, when cells and molecules run together, they make heat. We can do that to our own hands, and we can feel that heat, and that heat is going into the environment too. So a lot of the radiant energy that they got, they are losing as heat and motion. And the rest of the radiant energy they got is stored as chemicals in their body. Well, what happens to the chemicals in their body? Well, if the krill eat the bodies of the algae, the seaweed, and the phytoplankton, and the clams eat the body of the algae, then they get that chemical energy. So all of these arrows here are all chemical energy transfers. So these are all chemical energy transfers. There's chemicals that are stored energy, the glucose that was made by the algae. The krill get it. The glucose that was made by the seaweed, when the krill eat the seaweed, they get it. When the phytoplankton is doing photosynthesis, it makes glucose. It uses a lot of it to make heat and motion to help it run its body, but some of it gets eaten by the krill. And so the krill gets that chemical energy. The clams get that chemical energy. So what do the krill do with that chemical energy? Well, they do the same thing that the plants do. First of all, they need to run their body. So they lose some of that energy as heat and motion to the environment just by running their body. Well, what happens to the rest of the chemical energy that they have? They use it to build their body. So now it's stored in the bodies of the clam and krill. Well, what happens to them? Well, we have another energy transfer. When the fish eat them, they get the chemical energy. So these arrows are also chemical energy transfers from the clams to the squid, or from the krill to the fish, because the fish are getting the molecules that have the energy. Well, what do the fish do? Same thing as the others. They use some of that energy to run their body, which means it's lost to the environment as heat and motion, just as we did before. But they also use some of it to build the fish body. And so now we're building a fish body, which gets eaten by penguins and squids. So what kind of energy transfers are we going to have here? It's still chemical. At every level, if you are an eater, you're getting chemical energy. If you're a producer, you're getting radiant energy and turning it into chemical energy. And at every level, the organism has to use its body to, it needs to use the energy to run its body, and when it does that, it loses some of the energy as heat and motion to the environment. So these are the energy transfers that we need to be aware of in a ecosystem. We're going to kind of look at about numbers and how much energy is being transferred in the next video. I hope this helps. Struggle well.